Thank you. I will need you all to discuss with me. Okay, sounds good? Okay, so as a composer and artist, I began my career as a jazz musician. I played saxophone. Um, I also created some experimental pop music with my group, and then text-based music, which is basically music using any text like poetry, flash fiction, etc. I also created graphic notation, which is music based on notation of picture. Like notation is well known with, like with Western notation system, but in this case, with graphic notation, I basically draw anything to be music notation. And then, and I also create participatory performance, which is performance inviting audience as part of the main activity of performance. And I'm talking about my past here, which I basically did arts for the sake of arts. Like I play music for the sake of music. I created arts for the sake of arts. And then currently, in the past several years, I've been thinking about how I use music and arts to create something beneficial to the society. So in this case, I began thinking about how I use music to benefit our society. So in the present time, I've been working on our diversity, which is diversity of human hearings. So basically, we each of us hears differently. There's a normal hearing, quote unquote normal hearing, and there's hard of hearing, autistic listening, and then hypersensitivity and hyposensitivity hearing to deafness. And then I also center words on disability and accessibility. Then to work on that, I also work with cross media. I use sound, visual, text, and any other collaborative methods. And in this case, I've been thinking about arts for the sake of humanity, for ecology. So in the future, I've been hoping to create more works that are centered on more on disability and ecological justice, and then using unconventional collaboration and media. And also, I've been eager to explore about rethinking arts. Again, continue exploring on the arts for humanity and ecology. And then I'll be sharing about my works, divided into three parts. And this is by no means three categories. So the first part is about collaboration. First, I'll be showing you Winding Transporter. So it's created in 2015 when I was in residency called One Beat in the United States. So in this residency, I met 24 musicians from 17 different countries and different backgrounds. And we met to collaborate to make something, of course, arts and music, and also interaction with the local communities. In this music, I was thinking about how I represented my culture and me, but also without making burden other people on learning about my culture. So what I did is to learn about the Japanese gamelan playing system, and then making that system into an improvisational method. And then this method is was presented to four performers I invited to create system and then to create new music based on Japanese gamelan, but it's not gamelan. It's not traditional gamelan, but it's based on the Japanese gamelan. And then I invited Christy Burns playing Hammer Singer, Denis Pinyokin from Russia playing balalaika, Daniel de Mendoza from Colombia playing double bass, me playing synth or piano, and then I'm short one playing cymbal from Malaysia, and also Elena Park from the United States playing violin. I'm going to show you the excerpt of the music. So So the next piece I will show you is the second iteration of the piece. Still the same piece called the Trust Order, but it's played by mostly American musicians playing gamelan. So they are trained in both gamelan, Japanese gamelan, and also Western music. But in this case, they played my piece using the Japanese gamelan. Um, so you might be seeing this this, square brackets the words in between. So this has become habit for me to provide sound captions or captions to explain video and the sonic elements of the video. So if you need that access, then those are for you. Okay. Next. So the next piece I will show you is free improvisation. It was unimaginable for us to perform free improvisation in front of high school students and parents. You know, like some people might believe that, oh no, free improvisation is just for adults. No, free improvisation is boring. But in the case we wanted to try how free improvisation could transform into something interesting at the moment, and also knowing who were our audience at the time. So we perform. So Tiga Trio, the other of my group, Tiga Trio, consisting of me, a short one from Malaysia, and Daniel de Mendoza from Colombia, and also featuring Katya Silonosova from Russia. We created free improvisation and performed this music in front of high school students in Oregon. So we played a bunch of different instruments. I play saxophones. Guan played theremin, untouched instruments, basically electronic instrument. Then the Mendoza played double bass, and Katia played automaton, instrument like somehow like a toy instruments from Japan. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Okay. Um, so the next piece I want to show you is called Festival Musical Mayer, or in English it's called On-Screen Music Festival. So in the previous pieces, I presented you some music, but in this case, I also presented you a festival. Why festival is being presented here? I consider anything, including festival, is work of art. So in this case, we were thinking about how we create how we created a meaningful meeting, a meaningful collaborative meeting point between different parties. So in this case, artists, funders, performers, and the festival conceivers. So we created Festival Musical Maya, an online music festival conceived during the pandemic in 2020. Um, it was supported by the One Big Accelerator grant from the U.S. Department, U.S. State, U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, and we created this festival Musika Maya to invite Indonesian musicians and sound artists to join us creating and presenting online music to be presented to online audience at the time. So we were thinking about how we explore and use as much as affordable technology that we can use to present simple but also wonderful artistic moments. So I just want to show you a little bit about the festival here. This festival, we, the curatorial team and also the production team, invited music from and musicians from different backgrounds, from different different backgrounds of artistic approaches, genres, gender, and also geographical location. So we tried at our best to be as diverse, inclusive, and, and equal as possible. So that's what I wanted to show you about political layer. So in the second part, I was talking about the collaborative part. So here I want to show you the participatory part. Okay, so participatory means that the performance invite the audience to be part of the performance. So in this piece I will show you called Tweet Sick, we played an invited audience to tweets, to make some tweets from their mobile phones. And then the tweets were displayed on the screen, and then the musicians played and responded to the tweets in the real time. So we didn't prepare for like what kind of music we're going to play, but we create the system to be able to respond to tweets, whatever they were, and then we try to make some music in the real time. Um, So basic was a part of the whole performance called modern. What can be learned and earned from being modern in 2016. Uh, my uh, my artist colleague and I, Jay and Gawardaya, in a group called Jay and Gawardaya, at the time created a performance to invite the audience to think about our surrounding and to think about how modernity affects us and how we also live to affect the technology that eventually influence us. It's like a vicious circle, and we try to use as simple as possible the instruments, including Twitter, to create some accessible moments to the audience. To in this case, to tell and to invite them to think about how um, how vulnerable we are when we are interacting with technology, and sometimes when we are not realizing the effects and that we create from interacting with the technology. So basically, that's about basic. Next. Okay, so the next piece is called In Which to Trust. It's a film installation, so it's film, but it's also installation. It was exhibited at Soundsea Smithsonian Here's Horror Museum and Sculpture in Washington, D.C. last year. In this film installation, I pondered that 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 me and some of the community of diverse things have already realized that we hears differently. Each of us hears differently, biologically, physically, and psychologically. But we haven't had yet um, um, more comprehensive resources about how do we know about these experiences? How do we really understand how deaf people listen, how autistic listeners listen, how people with tinnitus listen, how people with repeated listen, how people with cochlear implants or hearing aids listen. So I invited 5 people with diverse hearings, normal people, a person with normal hearing, and then a person with a cochlear implant who is also deaf, and then a person who has tinnitus, and then a person who has autism, and then a person who has Meniere's disease, which is one of the symptoms called diplopia. Diplopia means, if we have one sound source, but our ears perceive the sound source differently. So it's like, say, the sound source is 400 hertz, but the two ears perceive 401 and 400 399, for example. So just for example, it's like a detune experience, and sometimes it's painful for them. So we created Enrich to Trust to generate all experiences through sound captions, and I invited them to create to respond and to respond to visual sources to create sound captions that can tell how diverse people hear. So okay, so I just want to explain a little bit about this. So in the first panel, sound caption number one, Bill Davis, current hearing condition, and typical age-related loss at high frequencies, noise-induced loss from loud rock music, and some processing differences associated with being autistic. And then I just want to jump to the third panel up there at Garland, sound caption number three, current hearing condition, experiencing permanent tinnitus in a reading, and noise-induced hearing loss above 3 kilohertz. And then down there, the left bottom, sound caption number four by Alan Jack, current hearing condition, having Meniere's disease for 50 years, severe bilateral hearing impairment happening in both ears, and then able to convert one-to-one with hearing aids, and then having almost complete cochlear amusia for pitch. Basically, he can't hear pitches or tones. And then continues to play piano using the psychological inner ear. So those are basically just an excerpt of the differences of hearing from five different people. So let's continue. I want to show you a little bit about the. Oh, you want to pause and then go to this excerpt, for example. So the person, Alan Jack, who Meniere's disease, he feels nasty squeaks, hooey sounds, high pitch at first, then get a bit lower, then continues going up a bit at the end. So this is a bit weird for the experience of balloon. Um, for the fifth panel down there, who is normal hearing, he feels a funny sound like when you try to hold your farts badly, but they go out anyway. um, Up there, the third panel by Ed Garland, who is having tinnitus, he feels distress rodent, high whine, like a high ringing, inner ringing inside his ear. So all of these scenes basically tell us the difference of hearing, but presented with the same audiovisual sources, so we can compare to each other. And then, okay, and these are some photos from the exhibition at the Smithsonian Hearsong Museum. I presented with five screens at the time to present all the experiences. Okay, I was talking about the collaboration and then participatory, and then talking about enrich the trust. We also talk about oral diversity, which is basically diversity of human hearings. Okay. I want to share with you this bit called Tangu or Reptilian. This is a dance film created in 2021. So it's music for popular Implant listeners um, and also hearing aids listeners. I invited a pianist, and then a dancer, and then I created sound captions on top of the piano sounds instead of lyrics or text because this piece doesn't have any text, but it doesn't have any lyrics. But I created sound captions to describe the piano sounds, and hopefully these experiences are accessible to listeners with cognitive decline and hearing aids, but also extended to deaf and hard of hearing and normal hearing listeners. Okay, the next one is called opera captions. It's a multifaceted performance created this year and performed by Atlantis Collective based in New York called Thin and White. So this opera captions is about opera, but instead of presenting a human as an actor, I identified captions, which is basically like a non-living elements uh, to be the main actor on this opera. So um, let me just we just need to watch this to get a sense of what it is. Okay, this is basically about opera captions. So we invited captions to be the main actor instead of the human to present themselves, to tell themselves about how they live as captions that are praised and also hated at the same time. Um, so, so besides presenting what I have been creating, I also want to take a look at other artists. Some of them are my colleague. Some of them also have inspired me also to create something that in the near future I'm hoping to create such. Okay, so this is Rani Jamba. She's a Medan-based composer and electronic musician. She created Kincia Aya or water wheel. Kincia Aya is Kincia Aya in water wheel in Minangkabau language, West Sumatra. Um, she created also Malang Maso, the music that makes the instruments Kincia Aya alive. Um, she so what she did is that she um, created a futuristic version of the water wheel and then try to create like a possible futuristic moments to make some of the past landscape alive and also to evoke the audience about the old technologies uh, uh, called the water wheel, the Kijia Island in West Sumatra, Sumatra Barat, to remind ourselves about the ecological disasters right now that we're experiencing. So in part of her research, she found out that the Kijia area or the water wheel used in West Sumatra is no longer operating because some of the drier river there, and also because of the drier river, the Kijia area or the water wheel have no longer operated. So it's that. But also she also wanted to create a futuristic moment of the water wheel. So the next piece I want to show you is called Opera Ini Aya by Salim Yononga. He is a Pontianak-based composer and multi-instrumentalist. Pontianak is located in Kalimantan Barat, and in case you don't know. Opera Ini Aya is about an opera to showcase about the ecological disasters in Kalimantan. In which the palm companies and the ecological disaster created from the, the exploitative companies there creating also the cultural disasters there because if the forest vanishes, the culture also vanishes. You know, like the instruments, the traditional instruments used to create some. Sorry, the yeah, the some traditional instruments use some of the forest material to create these instruments, and also they live in the forest. They live with the forest. Forest is part of their life. Forest is part of the family. So this is what non-native people, I think, should know about, which is was how we also wanted to reach out to the audience that so that our nature is part of our life. Our life is also part of nature. We are the nature. Um, this is the pertinent message for all of us to create a more harmonic life. So this opera uses two different elements. The native musical elements from the indigenous West Kalimantan, and also the Western musical elements. So they both performers have distinct areas of the native music and also the Western music, and they created together these elements to be one unit of music. And so the next one is so it's a visual art and but also a sound piece from Christine Sangin. She is deaf. She is a sound artist, a multimedia artist. Um, she created captioning the city. So if you remember, I have been talking about captions in my pieces. Captions are an essential part of deaf and hard of hearing communities. They cannot live without captions. Captions are one of the main accessibility elements in our life. And Christian Song can use captions to um, like basically to include all the captions in the city. So not just in the audiovisual elements like video, TikTok, Reels. Also, she embedded all the captions physically in the buildings. So she created all the captions. I installed all the captions in Manchester, Kingdom. So we will see. So you might be wondering, captions are visual, right? But how is this sound being used? So 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 the deaf and hard of hearing people with their embodiments, with their experience of being deaf and hard of hearing, tell us that they listen with eyes. Um, sound is not only possessed by hearing people, but also by deaf and hard of hearing people. Um, so they listen like normal hearing listeners, but with a different kind of listening. So they also experience sound. Captions basically tell us that we listen through reading captions. So it's a sound piece. So it's beautiful. Okay, the last piece I will share you is called 100% City by Rimini Protocol, an artist based in Germany. This is a theater piece, but they also incorporate music. They also incorporate participatory collaborative methods in creating this theater piece. Basically, 100% City is about a theater about statistics in the city where they create the performance. So they have performed this 100% City piece in Berlin, in Krakow, in San Diego, and also in Yogyakarta. I think back in 2017 or 2016, I don't remember. But they once performed this piece in Yogyakarta. I just want to show you how the excerpt of this theater piece. So what you see here, they are not theater performers professionally, but Rimini Protocol invited the local people in the city, basically, in this case Montreal, to be part of the performance, to create the theater itself together with the Rimini Protocol, and also to perform the theater by themselves. So it's beautiful that arts can also be performed by not only by professionals but also non-professional or laypersons audience, and this also involves us to think about the blur and the boundaries of 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 the definition of by being professional, by being layperson, because we as an artist and also you as the audience, we also have the same experience. We also have the similar shared experiences. We also have some cross intersectional elements that are interested to explore and also in the end eventually to share with each other. And then okay, so we're not talking about only the music or the arts, but it's the paradigm behind the works. It's not the audio, it's not the MP3, it's not the Spotify, but it's the paradigm behind the works. I want to tell you that arts can elevate us and our society. And also demonstrated by the previous examples here. I also want to invite all of us to look at ourselves and our surroundings and let them lead us to more empathetic experience, empathetic practices. Thanks. That's the first part. And the second part about transnational movement, I need your participation. So we're talking about at least two things here. First, how can arts be significant part of international relations, and which kind of arts? And the second question is, how can international relations support arts and a healthier arts ecosystem? And I want this to be more flexible, more relaxed. So, but Nana, if you want to guide this second part, I'll be glad.
Okay, let's give a big appreciation for the girls. We can sit down in the middle.
Yeah.
I get my chair. Okay. Wow. First word. Wow. I think at least for me, this is one of a very rare moment, yeah, for us. In IR class, we are able to have a bit of not only transnational discussion, but more on transdisciplinary discussions. I've learned so much from your artistic work. I think one thing that I would appreciate a lot in your work is that your presentation has opened up my perspective, and I felt a bit embarrassed actually. I never thought deeper about my ability in hearing. I always take it for granted. I was talking with Ibu Mani. Ibu Mani is also a lecturer in our class, and we have a bit of critical discussions on why IR is only for people who can hear like we are right now, but we never thought about how to make class become more audibly inclusive, or maybe hire a lecturer who has more empathy, or who has more practice on oral diversity. So yeah, thank you. That's really open up of eye-opening moments for me right now, and that's one of the ideas. I hope we can collaborate it later on about this. But on your questions, actually, this section is supposed to discuss about transnational impact, and there is four concepts actually how we learn about transnational impact. First is that we learn about diffusions. So how can we trace transnational movement is that on these diffusions, we try to identify the global norms that is going on, whether it's a discourse or norms or a movement, and how this global norm being hacked by local actors like you. So what we learn is very theoretical learning of transnational movement, and I think for the first question is, for your work, for example, on oral diversity, could you elaborate or could you tell us the story how you get inspirations, what sort of norms, what sort of knowledge, what sort of I don't know global traditions that you found, okay, this is something that I want to work on and become my own project. Maybe that's for the first part, for trying to build between arts and translational.
So back 5 years ago, I was thinking about, I suppose this question, how do deaf people listen to music? What is the relationship between deafness and music? So those two questions have led me to be here in this position right now, to try to think about the broader questions about listening, music, sound, and also eventually to the our society, like the system of living, education, performance, of course, and others. So at the time,
what was the norm? What was
like the norm is that music and sound is only for people who hear, with
exclusivity of music,
healthy pair of ears.
Okay.
So that's basically the idea. Okay. So the consequences are enormous. Like like music is only for people who hear, so that they think that, oh, okay, if we have performances, we don't need to include people with different hearings. So the consequences are so there's no accessibility. Like for example, um, if deaf people wants to deaf person want to come to your concert or performance, um, they can't access the performance itself because there's no access to the performance. Like maybe the performance were supposed to create captions or ASL like interpretation or any other access, not only to the people but also to like autistic persons, for example, or people with hard of hearing conditions that need to have some access into performance. So the other example is in education, like this. I think um, I think that the ideal environment we're living in with people with diversity is that maybe we can provide some live captions, for example, display the screens, for example, and then maybe we can have some prepared material that are accessible. For example, if we showcase some video materials for the class, we can have some text transcription, maybe like shared Google Docs, for example. And those are only a few examples of what we can do. But because of the norms, we live in the institutional hierarchy, which makes us limited to move beyond what we hope for. Like if we want to, for example, in higher education, if we want to extend access to our class, we need to, I don't know, maybe we need to get access from the
Change the regulation.
bureaucracy,
Yes.
So I think so that's the norm that infiltrated all of us, um, even without we realizing it, because this norm is pervasive. The normalcy, the normalism, we live in that norm, and that's dangerous.
Yeah.
We need to be aware of that, and we need to change that together.
Okay. Well, without survey for this class, who is the first time for you hear about oral diversity? Could you raise your hand? Is it the first time for you to hear or discuss about oral diversity? Yeah, I think this is also an exhibition of what you say, how the way we understand sound, the way we understand music at the moment is very exclusive to those who are able to listen. But I think the other questions or the other concept of transnational impact is about brokerage. We need actors to really to have an agency to diffuse the idea. And I think you have given an example of how to to diffuse this. I think this presentation is also a showcase for us that in terms of understanding transnational relations, the role of non-state actors is just really important. I mean, I'm sorry to hear, but at least for 37 years of my life, I never hear diplomat or our diplomat discussing about oral diversity as part of the foreign policy agenda. Or example, I never heard or I never been to any state actors that have a serious discussion on how to make education more inclusive. So another question to you is about brokerage, about actors who doesn't really care and put effort to do that. In your experience, what kind of actors that actively diffusing, actively promoting this kind of oral diversity?
Kind of factors.
Actors like who who you know are, giving a support or doing, promoting Anglo diversity
Okay.
in your working experience?
So I think practically like academics, artists like me,
How about from policymakers or from
policymakers.
communities, anything that we don't know yet?
I think in the UK, I need to check again about this, but if I'm not mistaken, in the UK there are some um, 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 non-governmental organization who work on our diversity to create some policies, for example, in architecture, like to create some accessible buildings and rooms for autistic people, for example. Um, I think there's also one in Spain, if I'm not mistaken. But there are some non-governmental organizations who have worked on this our diversity uh, to create some policies in uh, like yeah, in architecture and city planning, for example, and also yeah in higher education also. Not higher education. That's a different part. Um, yeah, yeah. I think those two examples.
Yeah, but not, I think we can somehow assume that, this is not like a popular, movement right now. It is still some sort of, there are networks, but this network needs to be, widespread, in terms of understanding our diversity. Well, we can continue on again, but I'd like to invite, our class here, our students, if you have any questions or any comments, anything. It doesn't have to really relate to transnational, but it can also be related to Mas J works, on overall diversity or on what he has been presenting. Any questions? Yes.
Sorry, I don't really have a question. By the way, thank you so much for giving that presentation. It was very, very insightful. Like I had a lot of fun watching it. Even though I look at my iPad, I'm sorry, I mean, it's hard for me to concentrate at two things at one thing at a time. So I was also doing my work here. But I did end up catching a lot through this presentation. And actually what what you mentioned before, if there were any public policy or maybe even foreign policy movements where I don't know, they would reach for inclusivity. And when you mentioned the UK, I did end up remembering that there was this one channel. Of course, nowadays we don't really use channels anymore. It's all streaming and Netflix and all that. But there was this one channel, state funded as well, that basically produced media that was not necessarily aimed for the market, you'd say. Like you'd look at media now and you know that they would produce things that would make money essentially, right? So, but the good thing about this broadcasting, again, I really couldn't find the name. I was still trying to find it, but it was under the BBC. But this state made media basically made or allowed for marginalized communities such as the LGBT community, such as even deaf people and minorities. It allowed them to produce the things that they wanted to produce, like even if it would be sellable or even if it would be marketable. And I think I sort of see that as one of the steps towards transnationalism and how art can be a significant part of art, because due to this channel, there is this one TV show, and I really did forget the name of the TV show, but it centers a bisexual woman. And this TV show basically became a cult classic for people who felt as if they felt it as though they related. And that TV show in itself was actually made by the broadcasting channel that was state owned. So I sort of see the connection here. Despite the fact that it was made in Britain and by the British government, but its effect ended up basically domino affecting like the entire world through that one connection. So I really do believe that art and creativity as a whole is this really beautiful thing that can bring things together and even create movements, you know. I think the movement of ideas is probably one of the biggest factor of, you know, politics and in a way, art is one of those beautiful things that can help the movement of ideas. Now, yeah, so that's my comment, but I sort of have a question as well. I know, so I see that you really focus on making music more inclusive. So making people who are hard of hearing also included, and even showing that people who are hard of hearing or hearing diversity, even showing that they can actually even take part in the music. Now, I'd like to ask, was this a personal type of motivation? Like, what exactly made it that you wanted to focus on inclusivity of music and people who are hard of hearing?
Can you repeat the question once again?
So-
Or rephrase the question?
So if I can rephrase it, it's what inspired you to create, to basically, what inspired you to make music more inclusive in general? Like, was there a certain idea that came and that's why you thought of this, or maybe it was a personal thing?
I think I've told you about a little bit about how I came to the point of why I care about our diversity, but also because of those questions I shared with you previously, I try to set aside the knowledge about music that I've learned for, I don't know, like 10, 20 years, to set aside them, and but also I try to reach different fields that talk about related fields like disability, accessibility, audiology, uh, architecture, for example, and then try to find a correlation between those fields, for example, and then try to learn from other people, from other experiences, who have shared with us their experiences being disabled, their experiences being oppressed by being disabled, and then and other experiences, for example, from those who create access in the daily life, like the captioners, audio descriptors, and so on. But it's also personal because I once met a blind community here in Jakarta, I think in 2010. Yeah, I think we
were together.
yeah, we have been together at the time,
Yeah.
also with my wife. So we were there, witnessing music presented by the community, and I was struck by like um, like music is not only for those who are normal, who can see, but also who don't see, quote unquote. Yeah. So that struck me a lot about me being a normal person, quote unquote normal person, because there is no such thing as normal in our lives. But that struck me a lot as a normal person. That also has inspired me to do a lot about our diversity. I also had unique experience in 2019. So my wife and I were shopping, and then I carried all the like some of the boxes, the cardboard boxes at the time, and the market was near the intersection where Chalung music was performed by the performers there, And the music was so loud, the sound was so loud that I could feel all the sound through the cardboard boxes I was carrying. So it meant a lot to me that listening to like that our body, not only our ears, but also our whole body is listening through the vibration that we perceive. Um, and some of the I've shared with you some of the in some of the previous pieces that listening is also through eye, besides through ears, but also listening is also through our body because we perceive the vibration and 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 by listening, it means that we don't perceive all the same level. Like we listen to the sound through our ears is different to listening to our ear, listening to something through our eyes, and also different to listening to something through our body. So yes, and so at some point there are some differences in level of listening and also in practice of listening, but also um, that also invokes me to think about the layer of listening we are talking about here. Like, what is sound anyway?
Yeah. I agree with you. We not only hear from our ears, but our bodies also hear sounds. That reminds me of a movie. I don't know whether you watched it, Coda. It's a movie 2021. Yeah, I think I watched that movie. I cried like a baby. I remember one scene. I mean, for those who haven't watched the movie, it's about a parent who is deaf, but they have a daughter who can sing and also can hear. And then the daughter really want to become a singer, but it was not supported by the parents because the parents say, "Why would you sing?" Right? And there is one scene that I felt I agree with you that how then the father tries to make peace with the daughter and then ask the daughter to sing for him. But the way he listened to her daughter is to put his hand in the neck of the daughter, so he can feel the vibrations when her daughter sings. That was, I think, I agree with you. That was also one eye-opening moment. How my understanding we used to take for granted that we listen through ears, but actually our body, all of our body, also feel the sound and the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wonder something that particular scene was actually mocked by some deaf people
Really?
because the director because they think the director to romanticize that particular scene, but the idea is there. Like
Okay.
the idea of perceiving vibration through our body, through touching, through perceiving from the air is there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Why, what's the problem? Why,
It's
what's the critic?
too much. Like
Oh, like dramatization
yeah,
of the scene.
like yeah.
Well, it's a movie.
It's a whole-
It needs a drama, it's a Hollywood drama. Okay, any other questions or comments from the audience? We have Ochan and we have Nadia. Yeah, Ochan.
Okay, I think I want to ask what are your take on the music can also be a part of, can be considered as a formative activism, right? So how do you maybe how do you put yourself and how do you come up with things that maybe can translate to other generations as well? I mean, I'm pretty much aware that not everyone can I don't know how to can pay attention to the arts that we have shown to them like
Yeah.
this is too shallow, this is not to me, this is not for me, this is not for my generation, or like do you have some kind of just suggestion to solve this kind of matter, maybe to modernize it or maybe to make it more interesting in kind of way, I think. Yeah, so I think that's my question, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you, man.
Okay. What's your strategy to attract this generation? Like this generation B
Yeah,
with,
we're gonna We're gonna take over very soon, so.
It's a new generation, how would you attract their attention?
I, I don't know how much those videos presented earlier attracted you. But in the case of live performance, or in the case of like a live projects themselves, I usually want to incorporate things that my audience, my intended audience, share with me. Like I'm a millennial generation, you're a Gen Z. What's the connection between us? What are the intersections between us? Um, so to reach that position, I always try to see first observers, like how Gen Z thinks, how I think, and then what attracted Gen Z a lot, what attracted me a lot, and then try to find a connection to create a concept that hopefully maybe attracted Gen Z, or attracted both Gen Z and also my generation. But my point is to be more open, to be always open as possible to some possibility, because from there I think some artistic shapes, artistic elements can also come up from those intersection elements. Do I answer your question?
Yeah, brilliant, sure, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Next we have Nadia.
Hi, I think I'll introduce myself first. So my name is Maria. I'm from the Newly Match in our. Sorry.
Audience.
Okay, so hello, my name is Nadia. I'm from the City Batch in IRBM. First of all, thank you for your very interesting presentation. I very much enjoyed all the works, not just by you, but by other artists as well. So I'm going to give a bit of a commentary to questions that you gave here and a bit of a question at the end. With regards to the first question, I truly think that arts, as proposed by the STAIR community here in IR, is really an untapped epistemic resource because it produces and offers knowledge in ways that other methodologies cannot in the academics, for example. Because in IR, I think we know that there's really this hegemony of like more positivistic or more rationalist methods in trying to acquire knowledge. So, you know, music and arts, which offers a more interpretivist and phenomenological accounts of phenomena and experience in the world, I think that offers innovative ways of understanding and seeing the world in ways that other methodologies see the world. And I think an example of that, for example, is seeing the work Capturing the City, and how it emphasizes on the sounds of urban settings. It really reminds me of one of the articles that was in the book that you recently edited, Sounding Asia, titled Sound, Please Listen to Me, Yogi Karza and its Soundscape, because I had to read this for my literature review for my thesis. What was really interesting to me is that how people experience political changes is not just on a visual level, like seeing changes, but they also can hear those changes. And with soundscapes and emphasis on how sound relates to the environment, you really feel that in today's world, there's this emphasis on the culture of speed. And speed is seen as this marker of development and modernization because more fast-paced soundscapes, they signify more modern cities. For example, like in Jakarta, you feel that everything seems to be more fast-paced, and you would say that in Jogja it's more slow, but I think now it's like that's starting to change as well because of low traffic and all that stuff. So the rhythm of the city, I think, is also a good indicator of how people can experience particular changes, not just on the domestic level, like in terms of the city, but also possibly on the national, international level. And I think one of the things I mentioned in that article as well is that what kind of ideal soundscape we want to have in the future. And it got me thinking that how we imagine the future, it's not just in terms of what kind of ideology you want to go by, what kind of ideas, what kind of doctrines you want to follow, but it's also what kind of soundscape you want to build in the future. Because I think having experience living in a city and living in a very small place, village that was occupied by less than 1,000 people, you really feel the differences between how like these ideologies of globalization and capitalism has really changed the way the attitudes of people towards the environment in the city and in the village. I think that's just my bit of commentary on that, and thank you. I'm writing a thesis on code politics and this relationship with city pop and the genre, so it'd be very nice if I could talk to you about that later on. But on to my question, I wanted to ask you more about the second question for how can arts support arts and healthier arts ecosystem. I saw that in most of your works, and not just yours, but other people's work as well, they are mostly funded and supported by the US Embassy, for example, or other foreign embassies of mostly Western and Western countries. My question is that how does this particular relationship between you as the artist from the global south and these embassies from the Western world, how is the power dynamics like, and how does that influence your work as an artist? And we should say that this particular relationship, does it limit you or does it constrain you, or do you think that there are certain areas where you could still navigate, you could still find flexibility as an artist? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Nadia.
How do you think about the question?
Good question. I rarely found a question like this, because this is a delicate situation. I'm a composer from the global south, living in the global north ecosystem, but also want to try to express myself, like the true myself,
Yeah.
but also want to navigate what they want.
Yeah.
So that's basically the power dynamics. I, as an artist, first try to select funders. I select the opportunities carefully because all funders have those different visions, missions, and I usually see what they are doing behind what is displayed. You know, like maybe like if I can read from their website their visions, their missions, and then try also to find other resources about what they are doing behind what they are doing. Of course, not all the organizations, not all the funders are created the same. Like some funders might do some harmful things. At some points, some organizations might also do harmful things at different points, but as long as they offer an opportunity that artists can, like me, can navigate, especially for my artistic expression, it works for me. And also, I'm also thinking further about what did I do and what are the effects of what I did to the society, to the funders that support me. So these two things are essential for me to think about, and also for some artists I know that who have shared about their concerns about this. So basically this like learning from this, I hope that our government, our organizations in Indonesia can think about funding artists at all levels, like from emerging, mid-career to advanced career, because I um, my career has developed because of the support of the funding, and most of the funding I receive have been from outside Indonesia. I received funding, one funding from Yayasan Kola in 2016. But that's also one of maybe the very few opportunities we have for artists, especially those artists who are practicing outside the mainstream areas, like what we know as pop music, or industrial pop or
Oh,
industrial,
industrial, okay.
mainstream outside the mainstream. So so learning from that, that's what I hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is sort of in ethics of digital technology, we know this concept of called responsible innovations. So I think one element very important is that how do we responsible to what we are working on, and in order to do that, we need to keep a self-critic, self-learning, and asking whether our work or our project has bad impact and how can we improve that thing.
Oh, can I
Yeah,
add
yeah.
some? So some interesting aspects I found about some of the funders that have supported me and my work is that those who work behind the funding organization are also artists. So they are theater player, theater artists, they are dancers, some of them are disabled, some of them are from the first genders. Some of them have worked with the first organizations who are also diverse. So I think it's interesting to see what I'm aiming for to create something seems to reach out to some funders who have intersecting vision. Yeah.
So it's like a discourse coalition, yeah. You already have an aim to work on the project of our diversity, and your project brought you along with this ecosystem who also have the same concern and same visions on the project. Okay, any other questions from the class or from here for the students? Okay, we almost also run out of time. From Ibu Wendy, do you have any comments maybe to Mas Jay?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you for your coming and giving lecture to our class today. And I hope that with this issue about arts or culture, it will widen the knowledge and also the understanding of students that international relations is very diverse. It's not only talking about politics, about the conflict in international relations, but by learning about culture or arts, I expect that students would think how to incorporate culture and arts into international relations, and especially when we talk about making peace. Yeah, you should think that there are a lot of instruments for making peace, not only negotiation, diplomacy, but today's diplomacy also involve many kinds of instrument, including cultures. Yeah. Now we see a lot of diplomacy instruments like what students I think focusing a lot is on culture, pop culture, like culinary, movie, and I think music can also be part of it. So I hope that by listening to this lecture today, students can have more ideas, yeah, about transnational relations from a wider perspective, yeah, involving many kinds of actors. And Masjid, I'm sure is among one of the actors, yeah, that have a role in international relations by using his expertise in music, yeah. From the sounds that he already presented. The first one is, I think, very transnational. Yeah. So transnational relations can also works in terms of collaboration in arts and music and other cultural products. So thank you very much once again for coming, and I hope that student will learn something, yeah, and then follow up with ideas of research, yeah. Mbak Nana has explained that for this semester we have project in our class for research related to culture in transnational relations. So I hope once again that students can have ideas and to develop your research topic and make a good result of the research. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ibu. So, words could be both sides. Words could kill people, but also words could give people more hopes. And the best souvenir, I think, is kind words or honest word. So I'd like to invite you all to leave your comments and impressions to Mas J. Abdisando. I will later share it to Mas J. So in order to do that, please go to menti.com and use the code 87178592. Okay. So yes, we still have like another 10 minutes. Do you want to say something?
Yeah. I also want to learn from you as well.
Okay.
So it's not only you learning from me, but also want to learn from you as well. I have a question for you. I'm really wondering what kind of diplomacy that have supported not only a healthier art ecosystem but also a healthier society as a whole in a broader sense. It can be an example that are maybe totally out of the box, but maybe you can give me or give your colleague example about a good type of diplomacy, a good example of what kind of diplomacy that is healthy, or what kind of paradigm of diplomacy that are that support a healthier society. Anyone?
Can I?
Yeah.
Thank you for the time. I would like to thank you actually because by attending this discussion, I can have an insight about is it called as oral because actually I have a sister with a high middle function ASD autistic person, and she actually has like we thought as she has a weird sense of music, but because of this I can learn that it's not weird actually because she just hear from different perspective than us. And I think that kind of thing should be delivered to Indonesian people because now we live in a society when people are very diverse with many perspectives. So it is really an eye-opening message. Thank you for this great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your remark. Yeah. Hey. My question is, what kind of, like, what are the examples of diplomacy that can support a healthier society? Like, I also want to learn from you as well. Yeah, sure.
Sorry. I just stand up. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Of course, we would all agree that this is an eye-opening experience. Seeing about how music can be seen as from another perspective, it can be seen as exclusive to only people who can hear. But to answer your question, I think one example which is quite prominent, I think we can see the example of the We Are the World Music project that are being used by many artists to raise fund to tackle the issue of famine and drought in Haiti, I think. Yeah. I think this is one example of how arts, in this case music, could complement diplomacy, and how I think also diplomacy could reduce this kind of. We know that the piece is very popular. How it can create a healthier, piece of arts, and also how it can improve the condition, and how it can, provide, how the funding can provide a better life for people in Haiti who have faced with starvation and drought for for more than a year. So I guess that is one example how, to answer your question on how diplomacy and how interconnected with art, in this case music, can create a better society. I think that's all. Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
So one more time.
Yeah, anybody else? Yeah. And
Oke, terima kasih kesempatannya. Saya rasa saya pakai bahasa Indonesia. Jadi saya melihat bagaimana cara menjadikan transformasi diplomasi menjadi sesuatu yang lebih sehat adalah dengan mengubah paradigma kita dalam melakukan diplomasi Indonesia. Karena selama ini kayak diplomasi ini dilakukan sebagai cara untuk mempengaruhi pihak yang menjadikan para diplomasi, dan ini pada akhirnya ada kesan-kesan untuk menaklukkan dan mengambil keuntungan dari pihak yang coba dipengaruhi gitu. Jadi kita lihat dari percobaan Mas Jai dalam membuat musik yang dengan mengajak banyak orang dari berbagai tempat dan berbagai latar belakang di seluruh dunia. Ini adalah salah satu contoh diplomasi yang sehat dengan mengetengahkan usaha bersama untuk mengakui kehidupan bersama, alih mencoba mengambil keuntungan dari pihak lain. Saya rasa terima kasih.
Terima kasih.
there is one more thing. Do you wanna say your comments? Oh, no, because I thought you were, I'm sorry. Yeah. Anybody else, wanna share your comments?
I might have a weird question maybe.
Sure.
Is there something a radical diplomacy?
Fair.
Fair. Interesting.
Sufficient. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, Ms. J. I think we will give you more answer. I will post your questions before. Can you share the screen? So I will post these 2 questions in the Google Classroom, guys, and you have times to answer your questions, to give your answer. To give you answer. So for these 2 questions, you can answer it maximum into 250 words. 250 words, right? Words, yeah, 250 words. You put it into the classroom, and you have time until the end of this week to share your answer. Okay? And then I will share the answer to Ms. J after that. Because, answering this is a tough question, we need time to think about the answer. Okay, I think that's all for our class. Let's give a big applause to Ms. J. And I think You are okay, okay, let's take a picture together with this class. Yeah, you may sit here to make it efficient. Okay. And for those who are on the left side and on the right side, could you please bit of squeeze yourself in the middle so we can have all of you together in the middle? Could you squeeze a little bit? We will take picture like it. Yeah. Kamu dulu.
Oh, bigyan mo ako ng aja.
Oke. Foto dulu nggak? Gantian sekali-sekalian. Habis itu yang profesional. Oke, kita ambil dulu ya. 1, 1, 2, 3. Oke, freestyle, 3. Oke, 1, 2, 3. Oke, saya Tiara tolong ganti. Iya.
Everyone ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Freestyle. 1, 2, 3.
Oke. Mas Jay, you have questions you need for you. Maybe Ibu Mani, would you like to give this Mas Jay? Oke, saya maaf nih. Maaf ya, saya yang